Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. In a comment the other day, I had somebody mention that they used three-part junction boxes back in the old days. Well, they did, and they're not commonly found in stores anymore. In stores you find, especially in the homeowner stores, you know, handyman stores, they sell you these. Now this is for new construction. These two nails would be driven into the 2x4 frame and would hold the junction box. The wire is stuffed through these holes in the bottom. Wire stuffed through there is held in place by the little tab there. It's not a really good method of doing it. This is a Carlon. Not a big fan of them. They work, and they do hold the outlet, and people are happy that they don't short out, well, much. But they're not very well made. You put this in the wall and drive those two screws in, or those two nails in, fasten it to 2x4s. That's as big as this thing can go. It can only hold one box. You can't join them together. There's just one box. To go with a larger box, you have to buy a larger box, and you can go out 4 gang. I haven't seen anything bigger than that, but then I'm not in the business anymore. I just do it for myself. But a 4 gang box like this gonna set you back fairly more than what this little single box is. The 3-part box, as described, has an end panel, it looks like this, and it will fit on the end panel of any of these. I could take this one off, take that screw loose, and this screw loose, and I have a junction box. I can take the 3-part junction box, the 3-gang junction box, and make it into a 2-gang, just by taking off that one part of the box and putting on the end plate. So you get an option with this thing, but it's heavy, it's awkward, and it does have the possibility of shorting out. That's why we started putting the tape around the outlets. See that ground wire? Ground wire is bare. If it comes up against one of these contacts, it'll short out that junction box and short out the wires. So that's why we started putting tape around the outside of the switch. In this case, it's the switch. So being able to take the wall off the junction box and swap that around back and forth to 1 gang, 2 gang, 3 gang, 4 gang, as far as you want it to go, as far as the code will allow you to go. It's kind of nice, but it's not worth the trouble of going through all the effort of making these junction boxes. They have the junction box has a clamp that holds the wire in place. So you stuff the wire through that hole, and then tighten down the screw, and that locks the section together. Looks like they got this screw tied around 40 ways to Sunday. Now, this is designed to be mounted in the wall. This steel tab sticking out the side there would go into the studs next to where the junction box goes, and you would drive nails into that. These teeth would keep it from wobbling, and that's how you would put this junction box together. It's a real pain in the butt. There are advantages to this, but they're not worth the trouble. Another thing you'll notice is, on this old switch, there isn't any ground lug. Now, probably millions of homes in the US have this same kind of switch. Leviton made switches for a long time, and they're a very good company. This red top was actually one of their commercial style switches. The regular switches were much smaller and had just a brown case. This one has been painted, I don't know how many times. I don't know why people do that. They just paint over the top of the switch when they paint a room. Messes up the switch, messes up everything. But then, this bit of wiring here is haphazard at best. They did solder the wires together, which was something that we did back in the 60s. When wire nets came available, we stopped doing that. Now this switch, I'm not ever going to use because it doesn't have a ground lug on it. None of this wire is worth the trouble to do anything with it other than clip it off of this, throw it in the junk box, and sell it for junk scrap. I put these in quite often. They work. Many different configurations. Some have tabs, some have slots that you anchor them through the side. Just all kinds of things. These were the good ones at the time that we were using them. You spent quite a bit of money to get these to put them in. These take about 10 seconds to shoot a die full of them. Take them out, break the gates, drop them in a box, you're all done. This one, each piece had to be stamped, and it looks like it's been stamped in at least a progressive die with probably 4 stations, because it's got, well, first you blank it, and then you pierce it, and you've got a die that does these partials. You've got a die that does the holes. And they don't usually work at the same time, because when you do the partials, you move the steel plate. You want to poke the holes and then do the partials. And then you have to form it. And it's usually formed from a coil of steel. As it runs down through the die, it does the different steps in different stations. And this thing was riveted on. It's kind of unusual. Spot welding was more common for doing things like this, but looks like they decided that riveting to this plate was a better way to go for monetary reasons. I don't know. But there's a junction box. These are still legal. You can still use these. There's nothing wrong with them. People don't like them because they're a pain in the butt. A lot of screws and a lot of things to mess around with. Hard to put in the wall, hard to take out of the wall, hard to work with. This one, I had to take the plaster off all the way to the door jamb to get this tab uncovered so I could peel it off. And I had to replace all the plaster when I did it. These switches, other than the fact that they don't have the ground lug on them, there's nothing wrong with them. I mean, they perform the function. But this plate is not grounded. If something happens and this box becomes grounded, this is grounded because this box had a ground wire in it. Now in 1960, when this was built, it wasn't a requirement to have grounded outlets. I had to go through and rewire the house and put grounded outlets in it because I wanted GFCIs. I didn't want to have a house that didn't have GFCIs. It's funny. When you look at this wire, get a pair of pliers to cut this apart. This is a 2-wire, no ground. This is a 2-wire, no ground. Different manufacturer. Silver coating, black coating. This is older wire. This is the newer stuff. This is triplex. No ground. And this is a 2-wire with a ground. Now, why would there be one with a ground? Well, probably because the guy just happened to get grounded wire that time. He went to the store to get what he wanted, which was 2-wire without a ground, and he couldn't get it. So he got this one, and he hooked it up. Now, I couldn't tell you if this was the power going into the box, and I'm pretty sure at the time there was a ground wire that came from that junction box all the way down to the panel in the basement. One single little, probably number 16 wire, not 14. This is number 14. Yeah, the house was wired in number 14 wire too. Common use today is number 12. Number 14 can handle most of the load, but if you plug in a toaster, a frying pan, electric frying pan, a blender, microwave, you're going to start popping fuses. And if you're not popping fuses, because this house had a screw type panel, had screw in plug fuses, you could put a 30 amp fuse into the same hole that you normally would put a 15 amp. And if you put a 30 in on a number 14 wire, you could actually heat this wire up enough to catch fire before the fuse blew. So that's why I went through and pulled all this wire and put new wire in, and ran circuits up through the rafters and or up into the attic and down through the walls and all over the place. Did all kinds of work. Because it's not exactly what I would call a good deal. But it's been a long 15 years now that I've been in this house. And we've gone through and we haven't replaced everything. There's still some wire out in the garage, which is the old stuff because I have to tear down all the paneling and basically gut the garage to get rid of the wire because it's in behind the paneling. In the house, they went up from the basement with a wire and down from the attic with a wire. So I was able to replace most of that. They didn't have a lot of outlets in the rooms. They had 4 outlets in every room. I've added some to different rooms because now you got a TV, you want to plug in a computer, you got table lights and corner lights and standing lamps and swag lamps, and you need a lot of outlets. So I've put in a bunch so that we can plug in Christmas lights and a clock when we need to, although most of the clocks now are battery operated. Alarm clock in the bedroom, that's powered. But a lot of work, a lot of fussing. Glad I had the opportunity to show you a 3-part box. It's got 2 sides and a middle, 3 parts. 1 piece molded. This still costs you about the same price that this one did, new. It's just, this one is cheap now, and this one was expensive at the time. 1960, I made $3.33 an hour, and I was paid pretty high for the foundry. No, 1970, I should say. Because in 1969, I graduated high school. In 1970, I started at the foundry. So prices have gone way the heck up, and quality's gone way the heck down. The design could be improved on these things. but it was pretty good for the day. I don't recommend putting these in. They're real hard. So, if you have any suggestions for new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.